This time we're exploring Florence, the capital of Tuscany in Italy. We get stuck into its exciting food scene and discover where many locals prefer to shop and eat. Join our adventures as we try to avoid the tourist hotspots and discover some of its more peaceful and unusual places to visit. Like and subscribe to follow the adventure. Florence is famous for its leather goods, and as you approach the main entrance, you pass through a corridor of stalls selling a variety of leather items. The Mercato Centrale is open daily from 9 a.m. and is bursting with artisan producers cooking up all kinds of mouth-watering cuisine, so it's a great and affordable way to stop for something delicious to eat any time of the day. It's divided into two parts, with the ground floor showcasing some of Tuscany's finest fresh produce, meats, fish, cheeses and treats. Ideal if you're staying in an apartment and want to grab some high quality food for cooking. This was closed when we visited, so we went straight upstairs to the food court. The food court is bursting with a magnificent choice of small restaurants, wine bars and bakeries. Anything and everything is available, including some of Tuscany's specialities. The food outlets wind around the outside of the hall, and there is a central dining area so you can get outstanding meals in an informal environment. It's likely you will share a table with strangers. The variety of food and the quality is exceptional, and it's served from 10 a.m. until midnight.
We chose the lamb skewers, potatoes and roasted veg. €20 for the two of us, and there's plenty here.
Florence is famous for its T-bone steak. It's huge, so we decided to pass. However, an American couple on the same table gave it a try and kindly let me film it so I could show you. We really enjoyed visiting the Central Market, but it is mostly used by tourists, and we wanted to find somewhere that locals enjoy visiting too. Keep watching because we share a market that is more popular with locals later in the video. When you're in Florence, visiting the main square is going to be on everyone's bucket list. It's home to the Duomo and its freestanding bell tower. You can climb both of these for magnificent views of the city, but you will need to book in advance. I decided not to on this occasion because I climbed the Duomo when I visited Florence about 20 years ago. It's also pretty pricey to climb compared to other towers and cathedrals throughout Italy. In fact, Florence is probably one of the most expensive places to do anything in Italy. It's also one of the most crowded. The cathedral is magnificent, although it does feel a little squished into the square alongside the baptistry and bell tower. The three buildings form a World Heritage Site, and it's easy to see why so many people enjoy visiting. We visited during May, and it was exceptionally busy. If you prefer to avoid the crowds, it might be worth considering visiting during the winter, or certainly avoiding the peak summer months. Florence has an unrivaled wine scene, and the city's wine culture dates back over 3,000 years. Many of its traditions still live on today, including some of its famous wine windows. Many are now boarded up, but you can ring a bell and have wine served through some of the windows. I must admit, we opted for buying more cakes and savoury treats than wine. This is exactly my kind of window shopping. The Ponte Vecchio is another tourist hotspot in Florence. It's a medieval bridge crossing the Arno River. It is the only bridge in Florence that survived World War II and is famous for the rows of shops that line either side of it. Most of the shops now sell jewellery. We decided to escape the crowds and relax in one of the city's gardens. Villa Bardini. Entrance to the gardens is €10. The garden offers beautiful panoramic views across Florence, and it is very peaceful. There's a cafe if you want to unwind with a drink, or you can freely explore the different areas of the parkland as we did. The garden is steep and is contained within the medieval walls of Florence. It's famous for its wisteria tunnel. It was lovely to walk through, even though the purple flowers weren't in bloom when we visited at the end of May. The land was originally agricultural. It's a great place to unwind, and there is a mixture of grottos, statues, fountains and flower gardens in a variety of styles. One of my favourite spots was the little rustic grotto. It dates back to the 18th century and contains a beautifully restored stucco design full of shells and layers of stone. If it's your first time visiting Florence and time is limited, I would recommend Piazza Michelangelo instead. It's free to visit and offers broader, better views of Florence's impressive skyline. It's also a brilliant way to admire the river, tiled roofs and many of its buildings. You'll find fantastic panini on this street. All'Antico Vinaio is a hugely popular panini chain, and with so many recommendations, we wanted to try it.
The queue for this place is crazy. We've been recommended this panini place, so yeah, let's check it out. Looks good. They have 4 kiosks, it's that popular. Even on the opposite side of the road.
The ingredients are fantastic and they bake the bread in-house. They use ciabatta, which is a popular flatbread in Tuscany. The staff work incredibly hard and ensure that you're having an enjoyable experience.
The favolosa is our typical from the house.
The portions are massive. We could have actually shared one.
I finished!
Our verdict? It's crazy, it's busy, it's bustling. We loved seeing what all the fuss was about and highly recommend visiting. When we're travelling, we like to keep an eye out for vintage cars, and we spotted these lovely Fiat 500s. Florence is huge and there's so much to see and do. You could wander the streets for ages and you'll keep on discovering something new. There are so many things to see and it's packed full of churches and museums. Whatever you're visiting for, you will find something to do. I used to worry about trying to see and do everything when visiting a place, but now I prefer to take my time and focus on a few things. I prefer wandering the streets and markets and getting a real feel for the place instead of trying to see every museum, gallery and church. Whatever you love doing, you're sure to find it in Florence, even if it's going on a merry-go-round. As you'd expect in any major city, there are a lot of tourist shops selling gifts made in China. If you're after a souvenir, then we'd highly recommend stepping into a Fotoautomatica. What makes these different is that they have just been restored and use old camera technology to take and develop the photographs. It's just €2 for a strip of 4 photos. We experienced our fair share of rain while we stayed in Florence. We searched for something a little more unusual to do, and we came across the Museum of Illusions.
All is not as it seems.
It was filled with a variety of interactive exhibits, illusions, rooms full of photo opportunities, and was a fun way to spend a couple of hours. Here are some of the exhibits. There are 2 floors to explore.
Which is bigger?
You look sepia. Most of it was quite difficult to film, so you'll have to visit for yourself.
Oh dear. I think one is enough.
How's this for advertising my channel? Please do like and subscribe to That Girl Goes Digital. One of the main squares in Florence is Piazza della Signoria. It is famous for its open-air museum and is full of sculptural, architectural and historical masterpieces. The giant copy of the statue of Michelangelo's David occupies the space in front of the town hall. If you'd like to see the original statue of David, you'll need to visit the Gallery of Accademia. We enjoyed walking around the courtyard of the city's town hall, the Palazzo Vecchio. Mercato Santambrugio is actually the oldest market in Florence. As with the Mercato Centrale, you can find an abundance of fresh produce alongside independent market stalls cooking and serving deliciously unique gastronomy. This bustling market was full of locals and had a very different feel to the central one. We'd recommend visiting both, but this one felt much more like you were seeing how locals live, eat and shop. Visiting markets is one of my favourite things to do while on holiday, so I am glad we visited both. I like to see how people go about their daily lives and try to immerse myself in these routines. Given the choice, I'll always pick a market over a museum. If you're the same, then do hit the subscribe and bell button.
I can see why this is a really popular spot with locals.
The food was delicious, and on the whole, the place felt less grand but more rustic and homely. Outside was all the fruit and veg. Although we had a kitchen in our apartment, we didn't cook too much during our stay and picked up some fresh fruit to snack on. Clet Abraham is a modern street artist in Florence, embellishing street signs around the city with humorous characters. He also installed a sculpture called Common Man on the Ponte alle Grazie. It was removed several times. In the end, authorities allowed it to stay. Is it still controversial? Well, people still react to this modern sculpture as it was covered in all kinds of stickers, tutu and wig. I'm rounding off this guide to Florence with a few scenes at dusk and during the night. So, is it worth visiting? Florence is a bustling city that never sleeps. It's big, it's beautiful, it's busy. It's packed full of tourists, and yet there is also a realness, with so many locals taking pride in their brilliant produce, heritage, hospitality and cuisine. We visited many of the tourist hotspots, but we also enjoyed searching for the quieter places to eat, drink and unwind in this fascinating city. I like to think that at some point we will go back. In winter. Next time we head to Siena. With its breathtaking squares and beautiful buildings, we are blown away by the interesting traditions of this charming Tuscan city. Subscribe to follow our adventures as we try to discover some of the more unusual things to do across Europe and the UK.